Hi, this is Guy Davis, and you are in the basement with JaVonne and Terez for your listening pleasure.
You said Mr. Davis is my father. I get that, but you still a sir to me, right? Um, through his music, and he's keeping blues alive. And the history of blues. That's us. That's us. And I'm really hoping he's going to do some strumming for us today. I really hope so. But without further ado, I'm just going to bring the man on the screen and we can continue this conversation about reparations and economics, because I know that that's something that he believes in and something that is near and dear to his heart. Everybody, the ambassador of the blues, Mr. Guy Davis.
All right, with the applause now. Thank you all so very much. Thanks for letting me join you this Saturday morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you dear ladies doing?
Look how well you did, Guy. Look at that. You ain't even need me, man.
Well, no, you pushed the right button, so I wouldn't be standing up here saying,
Yo, wonderful.
I've been listening in on some of your conversation and the R word, reparations. Oh boy. You mind if I just chat a little bit?
No, for sure.
First of all,
and this is my great friend Terez. In case you don't know her, she's our co-host. Des.
Okay, Terez, pleased to speak with you. I want to start my talking by congratulating the members of the Muskogee Creek Nation out in Oklahoma. And because times are changing now, they've been recognized by the Supreme Court as having about half of Oklahoma belonging to them. So maybe this is a change. Now, regarding reparations for African Americans, I would say that one of the first things we ought to do is speak with our brothers and sisters from the Native American population and ask them what has been the result of this, the stuff they've gotten, the casino, has it helped in building community? Has it helped in making education up to a high standard across the board? Has it helped in healthcare across the board? Housing, quality food? I would like to hear from them. I would like to get advice from people who have been very disenfranchised. Now, the things that I would ask them are the very things that I think that the African American population of this country needs. Is we need to look further than justice from the police. It's not as simple as that. Yes, that must change. You can't have your foot on my neck. That has to change. But there has to be a change on a societal level. I know I'm starting to get that Bernie Sanders sound. Look out now. Because the man spoke of change that is economic as well as just social. I mean, the government, if it came to a choice between them giving us reparations as funding or as institutions, no, they much rather apologize. They send out to boy that there'd be white men in suit and ties on the street calling on their knees, saying, we were sorry for the things that happened. Very sorry. But please don't take this money right here. Because I'm making a little bit of a joke. I don't make enemies like that of my Caucasian friends. I think that them being in power means that they can afford to have a sense of humor about a lot of things. So I gotta bring it up in that way. Racism coming out of the mouth of my father is an approximate thing. It's not The new racism is economics, it's money, it's voting, it's enfranchisement. Um, the people in charge who are racist know what words not to call you. They know how not to address you. So when you hear them do that, that's a distraction. It's a distraction to get you to look over here and get very upset about that word. In the meantime, who needs funding in your community ain't getting it. That is the real thrust of racism. I am my job as an entertainer. What's a soft job? I get to go out in the world, be the ambassador of the blues, and sing black music. And 20 years ago, it was way more to white people than it is now. But understand, I know that my real job is to reach into our community, to the young folks, and tell the stories of how the blues came to be, what it means, in what ways it is a historical record, and in what ways it's just entertainment. Blues, for me, is the music of survival. That is what we have been. We have been survivors.
Yes.
And all of this rap, all of this blues, all the music that sometimes we disapprove of, all the music that sometimes might not be quite Christian enough or orthodox, straight enough in society, that's the music of survivors. So it's got to be listened to anyway. Now, there may need to be some guidance. In fact, there definitely needs to be guidance. I can't hear women. I cannot hear people who the same gender as my mother and my sisters being defamed or dragged in the dirt for entertainment. I mean, that has to be spoken about. I'm not going to necessarily say to a rapper to have to shut you down completely, not unless it goes that far. But let's have a seat at the table for everybody to speak. Everybody. Well, you got me started preaching and talking.
Go on, brother.
That's it, man. Look, man, you got it.
Yes.
Well, I just happen to have composed a little song a few albums back, and let's do a little sound check. I got these finger picks. I don't know if I need them. I need to find out if my voice can be heard over this guitar. I mean, I want it all to be heard, but I've got to be clear. You don't want my mother coming back on the planet and say, "Son, enunciate louder." She got a place to be. I got a place to be. So I'm just going to remember what she said and try to do it right. Now I'm going to do a piece that I wrote called Kokomo Kid. Let's see if I just might do a little quick adjustment here with this capo on the neck of this guitar. Let's just see if it's okay. Now, Kokomo Kid, let me see if I can tell you a little bit of the story that starts it out. Okay. I'm going to tell you the story of a man named Kokomo Kid. He was born back in the 1800s, a black man. His job was to deliver coal to the White House in Washington, D.C. Now, he would drive a horse-drawn cart along the street and right around the corner from the east wing of the White House. There used to be a coal chute, and he would dump the coal down that chute. And after that coal went down, Kokomo Kid became part of the shadow government of the United States of America. You see, sometimes things and people needed to get into the White House that couldn't be seen coming in through the front door. Same thing going out. You couldn't be seen going out the front door. You had to go down the basement and climb up that coal chute and get a ride with Kokomo Kid. Typically, after that coal went down, then nose powder would go down. We don't mean the kind that a woman uses in her boudoir. And alcohol, exotic alcohol from all over the world. Even during Prohibition in the 20th century, some of the finest alcohol in the world got into the White House by way of Kokomo Kid. By then, it would have been his son. Women would go down that coal chute 3 at a time head first, who weren't married to anybody in the White House. And you have to understand that this is the way things operated for a while there. Kokomo Kid, let me tell you the story of Kokomo Kid past and present. Back when prohibition was the law of the land, politicians knew we didn't understand that drinking was the way that laws got made. They got laid and bribes were paid. When the white bootleggers got sent to jail, nobody couldn't come and go that bail except for Kokomo. Kokomo Kid, talk about Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. When liquor got cut down, the government almost shut down. They needed a bag man who looked like a rag man, who better than a black man to come serve the white man his hoochie liquor a whole lot quicker than the white bootleggers could do. I'm talking about Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. My name's Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. Let me tell you about Annie Oakley now. Oh, buckskin mama got her very own drama, come down from the mountain with the money that she counting for the governor of a state down south on the bottom where I got him when I shot him in the foot trying to keep the size 10 out of his mouth. My name's Kokomo. Kokomo Kid, the governor was talking too much. My name's Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. Run, get the shovel, dig a hole, Papa. Run, get the shovel, dig a hole in the ground. I was living on the rough, I was living on the tough, I was lifting up the lid, I was living off the grid, but then they found me. They want to use my skills, gave me money so I could pay my bills. They call me Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. Call me Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. Now we're moving to the present tense. Washington insiders want drugs and sex. It ain't about who's rich, but who connects. You gotta know the ropes and who to go to. Who did your favors and who do you owe to? Office to office, I can hack your email. Find out if you like male or female. I keep secrets if you say so. But everybody knows you got to pay more to Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. My name's Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. I've calmed all of Washington's fears. Kept the Supreme Court quiet for years. You got governors, senators, even representatives waiting for my drop off. Medicine for a bad cough. I got a meeting at 3. I gotta bring coke to the GOP. They call me Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. My name's Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. You can call me Kokomo. Kokomo Kid. My name's Kokomo. Kokomo Kid.
Absolutely love it.
Now, whether or not Kokomo Kid is real, we're not going to worry about that. You have to know that the history and the involvement in the situation is real as it can be. And the problem going on in this country today with the top end of the government is that they are trying to continue to avoid fulfilling the Constitution as it is written. If it was done as it was written, we wouldn't have had the Civil War. Slavery would have ended in the late 1700s. And now, economically, we'd have found a way to combine just enough socialism so everybody had a little land to live on and we could go forward. But no, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. So, Kokomo Kid, my job as a storyteller is to use my imagination to tell stories. Now, like Garrison Keillor and like William Shakespeare, I don't have to speak the truth in order to tell the truth. I can create fiction to tell the truth. I can do all sorts of things to tell the truth. And the truth is what is on the plate right now. Here we have this, how many times can you think about the George Floyd murder? How many times? That was the precipitating factor. That was the straw, the last straw that broke the camel's back under the weight of a whole bunch of predisposing factors. Not only deaths by lynching, but we've had serious hurt, harm, and danger by lynching. There are people talking about maybe we should rename some of these Confederate named for military forts and things like that. Well, I could think of one fort, Fort Bragg, where there was a black soldier in World War II named Isaac Woodard. He trained up through that fort, went to Europe. Excuse me, it might have been Asia. Forgive me. When he came home, he was a decorated veteran. He was riding in the back of a bus through South Carolina to get home. I forget exactly which state was his home. But at one point, he got taken off the bus by white sheriffs and deputies, taken into a prison and beaten. And with their billy clubs, they blinded him. They took his eyes out. And he was put back on the bus. And there was a man in Tulsa, Oklahoma named Woody Guthrie who wrote a song about that. We're singing at the moment called The Ballad of Isaac Woodard. But I guess I'm going two directions at once here. One is that I thought when I heard this story, my dad told me this ages ago about Isaac Woodard. I thought the man had died. He didn't die till 1995, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
And he lived in the Bronx, which is the borough that I live in. So there are people who have to live with this terror every day, the same terror that killed George Floyd, but so many others. And you hear us warned by the media pundits and go, don't play the race card. Don't y'all play the race card. You're playing the race card now. I'm going to tell you, there is not enough trees in all the forests of the world to create enough paper and cardboard to make enough decks of cards to fulfill that. No. This race card is getting played now. Now we have the choice between revolution and evolution. Now, I live in a community that there's a lot of senior citizens here. There are people who love people around here. In the outer area, yes, there are drugs, there are unfortunate things in the neighborhood, but it's been coming up bit by bit, like the fence been coming up too. And in the midst of the George Floyd demonstrations, the protests, there have been some people who have done crazy things. I'm talking about burning up things and looting. And we just absolutely got to get a handle on that. There has to be organization that Black communities have got to have at their core, because we can't have that. We can't have that, because what I think we're looking for from the police community is the same fair treatment that they give to every other community in and around New York City, New York State, and across this country. We are looking for equal treatment, and to stand in court and be equal before the law. We don't have to be the same shade of skin. We just got to be equal before the law. That is what the Constitution's promise is, and that is what we have been denied for so very long. I know y'all gonna hit it. You got me running my mouth. I know, JaVonne, you wanted to ask me some questions. You better sneak a few in there, because your lips are gonna.
Look, I'm good. I am so good. What you just brought to my mind is that people are talking Republican and Democrat. I'm neither. I am a constitutionalist. I actually agree with the promises of the Constitution, and I would like a political party that holds true to that Constitution. To constitutional law, though, I once took a course, and what I learned is that we really don't have any rights. Um, no, like all the I got this right, I got that right. The only right is the First Amendment, where that says that we have these rights, unless the government, for some reason, believes that they need to impede upon your right in order for the country to go forward. In other words, you have the right to own land. However, if the government needs that land for something, they
Oh,
have,
the type of oil.
yeah, they could,
Indian, you out of here. Okay.
right. So there are some even with your children. These are my children. I own my children. They're my children. You can't take my children unless the government believes that you are abusive or maltreating your children. If you have placed marks and bruises, and your children say they're being sexually abused, then the government can step in and remove your children.
Okay.
Although you do have the right to try to get them back, to do certain things to get them back. But I'm just saying that, there although there are some things, we don't have any complete absolute in the Constitution that says that we have rights. However, I think that the Constitution is a good map to where
Yeah.
we could be. You understand what I mean?
Yes, I do. What you were just laying out about if a child is being abused, that you don't have to. Yes, there's checks and balances in place,
Right.
but certain people at the very top end of the United States of
Are
America and the government ain't deal with no checks and balances.
Exactly.
What, you want to see my tax returns? No, go look at his tax return.
Exactly. This particular this presidency has shown every error, every every which way that a president or a government official can ruin the country, can sidestep every law, if not for checks and balances, because there have been no checks and balances. There have been a couple of checks, but there's not been any balances.
Yeah, my check bounced. At best, democracy gives us a forum, but it has weaknesses, and those weaknesses are what certain people in the government slip through.
Yeah.
Democracy is supposed to let you and I argue in court, my side and your side, and then it's supposed to look between us. And then there's somebody who can find a way to slip between the cracks and take everything I got or you got.
Mm.
So democracy, it's better than despotism, but it sure is a big mess. I'm gonna tell you, if autocracy comes back and the poor folks find the budget acts, all them congressmen and senators better start running. Oh no. See, if they bring back hangings and the French Revolution with the decapitations, oh man, some folks better start moving. I'm telling you, because that's if we did not live in this democratic, quote unquote, country. We have here in America, to misquote James Baldwin, the illusion of democracy.
Mm.
And the illusion of freedom. And James Baldwin said something to the effect that the problem with white people is that they believe that they are white. we have to understand that white is just another shade. America, during these times of tremendous change, and these are just the beginning of those times, at least I hope, is discovering that it must become part of the world as opposed to making the world accommodate it or us. Now we are part of this world. So all those weaknesses being displayed on our up end, we have weaknesses down in the people's end. I was saying before, we need organization. We need lots of community forum to be able to speak within our community, to speak to other community. I want to sit down with people, all kinds of people. If the UN was what it was supposed to be, it would not only be in Israel, there would be in Palestine. It would have been two states if it was
Right.
what it was supposed to be. Because I understand that's what they promised, they were going to be two states side by side. But somehow the economics or the politics, and there's ways to slip down those cracks and it wreaks havoc. And some of that is being corrected. By the way, I look on the internet, it's like alien to me because, dumb people shouldn't have smart devices. But I saw on the wall, on one of the walls between Israel and the Palestinian territories, there was a painting of George Floyd, of his face. It's very recognizable.
Mm.
And it actually had next to it the Palestinian flag. Now, I didn't come on this show to get politics going between Israel and Palestine, but I do come to say that everybody needs a voice. Everybody.
Amen.
Everybody got to come to the table, because if you shut people up, then they're going to have to get something to get your attention. They're going to start lighting some fires. Where have we seen that? We're going, pulling guns. Oh, and see, now don't get me started talking about the secret army
Talk
and
about it.
Bar and Washington D.C. and the president coming out to get his picture took it to. Oh, no, secret armies. No, I ain't even about that. And then they trying to be cute up there. Well, I don't know who they were. I didn't send them. Mm-mm. Anybody listening, anybody watching this show, do not take that. There are not to be secret armies. No, sir. No, sir. And Billy Barr ain't the one who has the power to send them out. Yet the president has a way of getting other people to do stuff. I wish, we're laughing in a way because it's so ridiculous, but it's so dangerous. We're laughing to keep from crying here. It is so completely dangerous. It is so anti-democracy.
A lot of it anti-human.
Yes, anti-human, anti-democratic. And democratic only in the pure sense, meaning that everybody's got a voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Trying to be cute. Well, we don't know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
JaVonne, Terez, secret armies. The president goes on about how terrible Barack Obama dealt with the situation in the Ukraine when Russia invaded the Crimea. I'm gonna bring this all together. It sounds like I'm just grabbing stuff out of the air. I'm not.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay. I happened to be on my very first trip ever to the Ukraine on a day, and I was in Kiev, the capital, on a day when busloads of demonstrators came into town to walk around in the public, and they had many police around. So it was an organized event. They were demonstrating to say that the Ukraine wanted to go to the euro and away from the Russian ruble. I was there on that day. I left to go on tour further in the Ukraine. By the way, I've been to Russia like maybe 5 times overall. And my ignorant self, when I first got to the Ukraine, I thought Ukraine was just part of Russia. I thought it was part like a subdivision, but it's not. It was part of the Soviet Union. They both were, but Ukrainians are not Russian. Well, I went away. That statue of Lenin got pulled down, and then you heard about secret troops coming in from Russia with no ID on them, coming into the Ukraine, truckloads of them. You heard about them shooting down an airliner, and now Russia has got control of that part of the Ukraine. If that's what a secret army can do, and the government of this country is just going to kind of make a wink and a nod to Vladimir Putin and then make a
Every
wink and make a wink and a nod saying, well, we don't know who this army was. Billy Barr didn't send them. I didn't send them. Gee, they must have just kind of showed up. No, we got to be very aware. You call me ambassador of the blues. I would like to think, I don't know about that, but I would like to think that I'm a person who has eyes and ears and the blessing of getting to go places to not only perform for people, but to hear their stories and their music. We got to remember this world is precariously balanced here, and secret armies. Mm-mm. No, no. I'm gonna hush for a minute. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee here so I can shut up just a minute.
I love it actually. And right before you came on, Mr. Davis, we were saying that, well, I was saying that, your parents were legendary, and they were on a lot of the front lines, and even on television. They were both larger than life, and they are a representative of the soil to which you were birthed, and through your lens, growing up under the legend of the living legends of at the time of Ruby Davis and Ozzie Davis and Ruby D. What were some of the things? What was it like? What did they help you through? And then your understanding was like there ever something that you witnessed or were a part of, and they helped you understand it from so that you could filter it as a child?
I'll start with the question you just asked me. What was one thing they helped me with? Something that I witnessed and didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I ever got called the N-word. I say the N-word. I know you and I, we were all sitting in a room. It was just us. We'd use the word and understand each other very clearly. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure who all this is going to. So for now, I'm going to say the N-word.
Okay.
Apparently this little white boy in a window, I was in like first grade or second grade, coming home by myself, which isn't something, my dad had to walk me to school for a long time. And I had a paper in my hand, a little star on top of the paper because I did good at something. And the little boy called out the window and called me that. Now, I didn't know what it meant, so I thought he was saying hello. So I waved at him and kept on going home. I think I was coming home for lunch. I wasn't even finished with school. I was coming home for lunch. And I asked, Mom, Dad, what is that? And I'll never forget the look on their faces. They looked at each other, they looked at me. I don't remember which one put me on their lap, and the other one went and got some books off the shelf. And they sat with me, and they explained to me about racism, about the words that you call people when you want to make them feel like they are less than you are. That's one thing I could say that I remember that they helped me with, but how many, I guess virtually all the Black parents in the country back when this happened to me had to deal with that in some form or fashion. Fortunately, it was just a word. I know other stories of other people who didn't get off with just words. Growing up with my parents, my sisters and I all kind of agreed it was a very ordinary thing. We didn't know what, if you're a celeb and you're known by so many people, they were just mom and dad to us. And when you did stupid stuff, you got one upside the head. I earned a few of those. I was lucky it was upside the head, man. Mom would take off the belt, baby, and then she bend it up and go pow like that, and then your whole thing would tense up because you knew it was about to come. Oh. And my dad, when it came to punishment, because I was way less than the angel they must have thought they were getting. When it came to punishment, he was a very wise man. My dad was a big country Negro. I'm talking about if he hit you, he'd kill you. His arm was at the like, boom, you'd be gone. So he would take off his belt and you'd have to hold your palm up flat, and he would take that belt, wham, so he could hurt you without ever harming you.
Mm.
And that was a distinction that I so loved him for. It was very clear after the pain, because you had to look him in the eye. He tell you what you did, and you had to, come clean, you had to get straight. Now, my mother, on the other hand, was just a little bitty girl. But when you're a child, you don't realize that your mom used to be a little Harlem street thug woman to go upside your head and knock you out. I mean, my mama had hands faster than Bruce Lee.
What?
I'm gonna sit up here and tell you, if a teenage boy was to talk out the side of his head, talk outside his neck at my mom, you'd be hit before you saw it coming. You wouldn't, it's like your knees are buckling, and then you think, Mayday, I've been hit. I'm going down. I'm gonna fix on me because I'm going down. Boy, that lady get all up in your business and hurt your feelings.
Wow.
Let me wrap this up a little bit. I got older, and I could deflect my mother's blows a little better. And if I was going to say something stupid, I knew to be far enough away. But I generally wasn't that stupid. But I was still, I was in, I think she was scolding me about some chore I didn't do, whatever. And I was sort of giving her the attitude, like, talk to the hand. I didn't say that. Mind you, I ain't said that, but it was a little bit of that. And I was down in the basement up in our house in New Rochelle. My mom left the basement. My dad came downstairs a few minutes later. Says, son, your mom's crying. Said, perhaps you don't need a mother. And he left. I crumbled to the floor and wept. So I will say that I grew up in a very ordinary way. Had to get good grades in school just like everybody. I had to learn that a teenager with a smart mouth was not necessarily as good as you might think it is. But I knew love in that house. My sisters and I knew love in that. My sisters each have 3 children. I've got 1 son, and there's a lot going on. So, oh my God, is this coming up on your show, Melba Moore? Hello, ladies. Hello, guys.
Yes.
Melba Moore, darling, if you are hearing my voice, I first saw you in 1969 on the set of Cotton Comes to Harlem. Loved you then. Loved you when I saw you coming outside the theater in 1970, was it? Broadway, Pearly. I have loved you forever and continue. You honor me by including me in this hello. And wow. So I can say is wow.
Yeah.
No more forever. Okay, so I know I'm talking, and it seems like I'm talking all over the place. But I think the basic values my mom and dad taught to me were that if people give you things, if they pay you for work, then you owe them the best work you can do. You owe them everything you have. You don't go out and get no headache and, well, I have to go smoke a cigarette. I have to go try this white powder over here. No. In fact, in our house, we didn't grow up with that, but we grew up with conversations that let us know that if we were going to try something crazy, you better come home and do it. Don't do it in the street because you could die in a hurry. So I learned the value of giving all you have to what you do. Take another sip of coffee with that.
I love it.
Hi, Miss Moore. How are you? She only pops up when she loves you.
That's okay by me.
When she wants to say hi to a guest, that's when she pops up. So you are special to her as well.
Well, then, if I may speak further, and it seems like I ain't allergic to talking, not today. I do a live cast on Facebook every morning but Saturdays. At 10 a.m., it's called Coffee with Kokomo. I go under the nom de plume. I go under the name Kokomo Kid on Facebook. That's my Facebook page, Kokomo Kid with 2 D's. Every morning, 10 a.m., I do something called Coffee with Kokomo, and it just goes 15, 20 minutes. I play a little music, talk a little talk, and we do a coffee salute. Just, and that's just a way of expressing love. Here we are all separated in one.
Absolutely.
And I see Melba's words. She loved my dad and mom, such good memories. Well, I'll tell you what, Ms. Moore, if you reach out on Facebook Messenger to Kokomo Kid, I would so happily answer you in any way that I can. And I will tell my sisters who are out in various places today that I heard from you. This is treasure to me. This is treasure, y'all. This is treasure. Oh, Melba.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm so happy that we were able to make that connection for you. There are people who love you, love your parents without knowing you, without knowing your sisters. I can say that they're like distant cousins to me, being that your parents, although clearly I didn't know them personally, were like family. Family. When you would hear your father's booming voice over some, oh, that's Ozzie Davis. I know him. Oh, look, it's Ruby. I know her. She cares about me. You got this feeling that without them knowing you or calling your name, that they cared about you and your well-being and you doing the best that you could. And you had to be a credit to your race because of them.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, JaVonne, and I'm gonna piggyback that by saying that they were very active at a time when you didn't see many images like us on the screen or in the public figure, and they carried that with much grace given the climate. Their messages were clear about what they felt, and it felt like at the risk of whatever, it was the love of the people transcended as well. I did have an opportunity to meet both of them through the business, and just the only thing I could think of at the time, because how you have like a litany of things you want to say if you're ever in room with and you name, the only thing I could bring myself to say was thank you, just thank you for representing, and they both were so graceful, and of course, like I co-sign the fact that your father was larger than life in person as well, and very very dignified. He had a very royal or regal feeling in person, and that was it. And I was grateful to both of them just for the images that they projected at the time when there weren't a whole lot, And then bringing it to one of my favorite scenes was a Spike Lee joint, when they showed the dichotomy of how, in one of the ways that we could only read it as a person in the community, but when they were in a scene with Gator, and for those of you who know Gator was played by Samuel L. Jackson, and he came to the house to borrow money, because for his addiction, and how mom, showed the layers and the complexity, all in her movement. You couldn't tell me that they didn't birth Gator. You didn't tell me that they did not, that Gator wasn't their son in real life in terms of how they managed that particular scene, with dad being pastor, very clear about the boundaries and what he wasn't going to tolerate as a parent. And then mom, of course, loving her sons, and then the introduction of the mother-son dynamic and wanting just to give them the money to go. Loved them to give them the money to go. How they, without the words of the script now, because there were some things that were there, a lot of ad-libs, but how they were able to convey the story in body language, and even how Sam he just tied it all up. But those two in action were a force in storytelling. And it does not surprise me one bit that you had the capacity to teach yourself the guitar, and now you are a storyteller, through your music. So very, very interesting, very prominent legacy you come from, just that's my opportunity for telling you what I feel. And thank you.
Well, thank you too. You honor me, including me up in that mix. The folks, their main word was family. When we got together, the same way that real estate agents would say neighborhood, 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 my father would say family, family, family. And family was the one thing that was one of the harsh things that slavery had the power to take away from us all those years ago. To sell part of your family away down the river somewhere. During a truth that you saw all her children sold off, except for maybe one, something like that. Family, family, family. I'm glad that they were able to reach out and make you feel like family. They emphasized my parents emphasized the importance of people who work backstage, behind the scenes, people who work to make things happen, not just the glamorous face, out front. I don't mean negatively, but there's Beyonce, and then there's the people who carry the 4 blocks worth of train on her dress. That you gotta you gotta have people to make it happen, and people involved in the media are especially a favored part of our family, the Davis family, because it is the media, by the media, that we are able to make ourselves known to the world and to the public. Now, I think my folks were in the world doing what they were doing for a reason, and in a time that it was happening. It was happening in a specific time. The things that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King did in the late 50s, early 60s had to be done then. Later, they would not have worked out so well, or at least quite the same as they did. And there was a time for the Panthers to be doing what they did. It was a time for the two brothers in the Olympics to stand with their fists raised, not knowing that's going to be more than half a century later. The world would echo that, even though so many of us had the sympathy, we couldn't give them their careers back, which were taken for going outside the Americans, disrespecting the flag by raising your fist or getting down on your knee. There's some people in this world, I ain't gonna name no names, but boy, I wish that they would keep names like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass out of their mouth. Those names should burn their mouth when they try to speak them. Because there are some people in charge and in power. Like I said, the people who can harm us most know what to say and what not to say. They know perfectly. I promise you, the best preacher in the world must be the devil. He must know the Bible better than any preacher. I can forward sideways and can quote it in Sanskrit if you ask him to.
Facts.
Oh yeah. And the thing that's going to hurt anybody the most is the thing that is the most attractive, most convenient, most, oh, how nice that is. There were people in this world who had to sacrifice so much. During the HUAC, House Un-American Activities Committee, Lord have mercy. Senator Joseph McCarthy, assisted by Roy Cohn, who at one point later in his life had this fellow named, I think, Trump working for him. Those people had the power to destroy careers and lives by saying, well, he's a communist. You're a communist. You look like a communist. You smell like a communist. You walked around with communists. You were seen with communists. My parents were low on that radar, Paul Robeson stood up and said, "Yes, I'm a tall black man. If you're going to chop me down, I'll make a big target." But he also said, "Don't come at me with no stupidity.
Mhm.
Don't come at me with stupidity."
Mhm.
He spoke about Russia and communism in a time when Russia was well known for not um, espousing that there are the N word,
Mhm.
both
Mhm.
people, that all people are supposed to be on an equal level playing field. It didn't turn out that way with Joseph Stalin, but there were things that had, the checks and balances and things. There was a black entertainer named Josh White.
Mhm.
He was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee. Josh in the 30s had been a gospel singer. Before that, I think he was a blues singer. And after that, he became a folk singer.
Mhm.
And he was known by people like Pete Seeger and Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee and Leadbelly. And he used to play in those circles, Big Bill Boonsey. Well, Pete was very angry at Josh because Josh named names. He went there. They asked you, "Are you now or ever have you been a communist?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, we ain't gonna let you off that easy. You got to name some names."
Mhm.
The night before he went in front of the committee, Josh White went to Paul Robeson. Man to man said, "Paul, if I don't name names, they're not going to let me work again. I'm going to name you." And Paul said, "Do what you have to do." Basically, I'm paraphrasing broadly here.
Mhm.
Josh named names. But who amongst us has walked in Josh's shoes? People were very angry at Josh. I'm quoting Harry Belafonte saying that. Josh, when he was a young black boy, saw his father beaten almost to death in front of his eyes by a white man. I don't recall what part of the South. I do not recall. So Josh knew fear. He was taught to fear, and he was afraid. And I'm hoping that in the broad sense of history, Josh will be forgiven. He will come, there will be a reckoning, but ultimately, I'm hoping he'll be forgiven, even though he betrayed us. Harriet Tubman, the most famous quote that I've ever heard from her. Y'all, I'm going to have to say the word because this is a word that Harriet used, and I'm going to try to give a context. As you know, the woman was busy freeing people, taking them, walking them up north to either to Maryland and eventually up into Canada. And there was tremendous fear. These people who were raised as slaves, they knew fear. And one black man in a critical moment when there were whites nearby was ready to throw his hands up and scream, "I'm here, please don't kill me." And he was about to give up the entire group of black people. Harriet Tubman drew her revolver, pointed it at that man, and said, and I quote, and I do not use this word gratuitously, but it makes a point. She said, "Dead niggers tell no tale." Now, that woman was responsible for all of the lives in that group,
Mhm.
and she had to be ready to kill that man to make sure that that happened. And history says that Harriet never lost a passenger. She never lost a fare on the Underground Railroad. And she had to use ugly words. So ugly words in and of themselves, I don't think, are necessarily racist. I seem to be rambling, but I don't think I am. Let me keep with it here, man. Uh, you hear about some black man, some governor, whoever it was, who wore blackface at a party. Um, You hear about somebody who used some very poor language with the N word. Bill Maher, the comedian, said something about, man, they treat me like a field N word, like now it was spoken to be clever, to make a comparison about how hard he was working in the TV industry. His, okay, for me, Bill's crime was a lack of sensitivity, that that word might upset some people, not just because it's a word, but there are people in living memory who have seen people lynched, who have heard that word and seen that Southern battle flag raised and seen their own people die in the most cruel and inhuman ways. I'm not going to go into it and start talking, praising the Führer and waving, some kind of Nazi emblem. You don't do that. So I would like to live in a world where the people who transgress are given a chance, an opportunity to learn from their misdeed, apologize, and hopefully grow from that. I don't want to live in a world where automatically, okay, from now on, if you use the N word, you go to jail. I want to live in a world where we can make sense out of it, where there can be forgiveness, but it has to be across the board to all people. Now, there are some people who ain't going to bite, and those people, I'm sorry, there's going to be some serious reckoning. But I don't want us to be so reflexive against a word or a thing like that. No, we have to. We got to realize again, we all got to have a voice. We all got to talk. Oh, don't get me started.
No.
Pete Seeger. Okay, I'm gonna shut it up here. Pete Seeger wrote a song based on Ecclesiastes in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And the words go, to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. And like I said, there was a time for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King to be here and do what he did. There was a time for Malcolm X to walk this earth, say what he said, exactly the way he said. And then we got to keep moving. We have to deal with the times as they come.
Well, I'm grateful for the time now because the kids are, and I say kids with all due respect, the younger generation, they have taken a blueprint and they have remixed it, and they are have taken to the streets, and for the first time, it is a global affair. We get hyper fixed on the United States, but it is a global affair with this. They are black, and we have to remember that those ships dropped off people all over the world, not just the United States. And it is time for folks all over the world to make changes, in systemic changes that result in equality. Now, if you're going to talk about politics or parties, I'm not really political. I just know bullshit when I see it. And I would like to say that, if there is a party to be made, let's start talking about the Equality Party, or and particularly, and as a Black woman in this country, that is a whole nother debt that cannot be paid by virtue of the fact that we have nursed a lot of these babies willfully and forcefully throughout our entire existence. And that's and that's including ours own. And that's a debt that we can never be repaid. But I'd like to do something in closing with you, Mr. Davis, if possible. We have this game we do called Rapid Fire. And that's when I say a word and you say the first thing that comes to mind, the first word that comes to mind when I say a word. I'm going to say 5 words, and then JaVonne is going to say 5 words. And this is just to give, not that I think, I feel like I know you. I feel like we're kindred in some spaces, but this is to give folks a peek behind the veil. So I'll say a word, you say the first word that comes to mind. And
okay, this is literally any word. I can go there.
You can go wherever you like.
Before we play rapid fire, and I definitely want to go there with you. I was watching a video, an interview that you and your sisters were a part of, and there were a couple of things that came up. about your upbringing. And I just wanted you to talk about them just a little bit before we do rapid fire. And I definitely want to go there, if we have a couple of minutes. So they talked about a time where Malcolm X was at your kitchen table. Visitors, people who came by, like the portiers, you, I think one of your sisters said one morning y'all got up for school and the Black Panther Party, like a lot of Panther Party members were laid out sleeping in the living room because your parents had hid them for the night. Just like so much uh, Dr. King, just people who visited. Could you just talk about some of the people and some of the memories, if you could? I just wanted to hear a little bit about that, and then we'll do the rapid fire. I'm sorry, I know
Okay.
I've been in and out, but
Okay. My sister told me that one summer or one day while I was away at summer camp, uh, Huey Newton and some of the other brothers from the Panther stayed at our home in New Rochelle. Huey got to sleep in my bed. I wasn't there to see that. Uh, Malcolm X, I'm not positive that he came to the house, but I think he did. But I know he came to Sidney Poitier's house and other people who were close to and sometimes neighbors of my parents. Let's see. You wouldn't know the name Howard Da Silva, but he was a white Jewish man who had been named by the House Un-American Activities. I remember meeting him there. I remember Daddy King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's father, showing up at the door of my grandmother's house. And this is, after a while after Martin had been killed. And was the guest preacher at the local Baptist church. And somebody told him that my grandmother made the best greens. So there he was, just standing at the door. We had Jesse Jackson, who performed my older sister's first wedding ceremony. It was a beautiful ceremony. Wrong husband, but a beautiful ceremony. I remember speaking to Jesse and having him just be there, like anybody would be in the house. Gosh, who have I talked to? I've spoken to Langston Hughes on the phone, who I think had called to talk to my dad. Langston Hughes, the magnificent poet laureate of the, I'm about to say the native African American people. I got a little sideways there. Of African American people, this great poet and writer. I'm sure the minute I close my mouth for more than 10 seconds, I'll think of the name of another person. Well, yeah, folks were there. My folks used to have soirees where people would come by, they would read their plays, read their poems, get together. I remember before our first house in Mount Vernon even had a lot of furniture. They were sitting on crates or whatnot. My mom was making sandwiches, and 10 feet away from me, I have the kitchen knife that she used to use to cut the bread, which was the same knife that her father, my grandfather, used when he was a cook and a waiter on the Pullman train. I still have that.
Wow.
yeah.
I could tell you also, apart from my parents, I got to know Yolanda King just a little bit. Reverend Dr. King and Coretta Scott King's eldest daughter. When she was 18 years old, her first year in New York City at NYU, and she was studying drama, or at least she was in a play. I don't know if she was studying drama. That's where I first met her and said, hey. I was surprised because she knew who I was. And on like that. Oh, regarding Malcolm X. My uncle, Uncle Tommy, I don't remember what number, 13X or 34X, something like that, was one of Malcolm's lieutenants.
Mm.
And he told me stories of, this is going sideways from what you're talking about, told me stories of being visited by the New York City police in the days before Malcolm was assassinated. And he told me how they came in, one came in, he sat him at the kitchen table, he just left his billy club on the table and talked to him like he's a friend. And then he went for the door and headed out and said, "Oh, I left my billy club in there. Could you just hand it to me?" And my uncle knew that if you get your fingerprints on that billy club, that's all over. They can pump you full of bullets and say you tried to kill that man. So he said, "No, you come back and get it." But that same uncle had a closet with a steel door, not a thick steel, but thick enough. And behind that door was a rifle. And he could, if somebody came in the door who meant ill will, and he lived in Queens, right near Malcolm X and Betty. If somebody came in the door who meant them harm, he'd reach behind that door for that rifle. And with the protection of the door, he could shoot at that person. This was my mother's brother. That same brother who is an electrician and got a job in the 60s wiring the White House for sound. Not the whole White House. They got a bunch of contractors and gave them each a portion to do. So I know that goes far afield in your question, but yeah, I've seen and met some people and heard some stories.
Well, maybe the question was wrong because that was a very good answer. All right, rapid fire. You're up first, Rez. You got the rules, right, guy?
I can say, well, I'm just saying one word that comes to mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it could be any word. There's no censorship, or this is our show. Nobody's going to get in trouble for anything that you say. And you don't worry about hurting anyone's feelings. This is our show. If your feelings are hurt, think about why. That
well, if my sister hear me say the wrong thing, it might be some more than hurt feelings. Okay, but I'm kidding. Okay.
Community.
Family.
Black people.
Honor.
Legacy.
River.
Love.
Home.
Children.
Mine.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're up next.
Music.
Religion.
Blues.
Key.
Ozzie.
Rayford Chapman. That's a real name.
Wow. Look at that. Ruby.
Royalty.
Luxury.
Honesty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're going to have to shut me up real soon here. When you said Ruby and I answered royalty, my mind went to something very personal for our family. It was upon the death of my mother. As she lay in the bed, my sister said, after a while, her face relaxed in a certain kind of way where she looked regal. She looked like a queen. I don't know how to explain it because death is not an easy proposition in Wu. When I got there and we're around the bed, we're dealing with that. But after a while, there was something in her countenance that was peaceful and somehow almost legal. So I
Wow.
just want to say that.
Just
Thank
that,
you for that.
just that she.
And let me, this is a question that actually it came to mind when I saw a picture of you with your mother. This was a long time ago. I think probably even prior to having a show. But I wondered, and it just brought to mind right now, when your mother is the glamorous, I guess sometimes glamorous, because I'm sure you had an opportunity to see her in moments where she was not glamorous, but with that striking beauty as a mom, what was it like choosing who you would date? I mean, like, your mother was beautiful. Did inside the strength, the poise, and I'm gonna also say, what was it like bringing a date home? Like, what? How did your family, your mom and your dad, react when? Because I'm just gonna assume, Guy, that you had a dating experience that might have been comparable to the rest of us, where we picked a few lemons before we had a taste of honey, maybe, and our parents seem to know it long before we do. What was your dating experience like coming up? Let me just say it like that.
Coming up when I was a teenager, mom had an edge to her that doesn't show in the public. And I wasn't in a hurry to introduce girls around my mom to my mom. I remember being in our living room with a young lady from school, and I guess we were in junior high school or high school, somewhere in that, and there was some music playing, a little bit on the slow side. And I recall we were kind of swaying on the slow side in the living room. And at that time, my mama came into the living room with the dim lights and had a watering can and started watering the flowers. And I sort of, so it was a little edgy. Now, years later, after I had already had a son and I was single again, um, I brought home a woman that mom felt very comfortable around. And, there were a lot of good, genuine family kind of smiles and things. She struck her that way. But when I was a young teenage prince, well, mom would keep me in the slow track, real slow. And I'm telling you, I'm glad she did because a lot of my contemporaries got little this baby here and that grandbaby there, and one of them got a great grandbaby. And
Yeah.
not that it ain't wonderful to have the children, but when you ain't ready to have the children, that's right. The mom was some of her most strict moments had to do with me and dating. Oh, and my sister too. They didn't catch no break. No break. If the man was wearing black, my little sister was not supposed to go out. It got a little edgy sometimes. That's all.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I just had to go there, because as someone again who reveres your parents as just amazing part of our heritage. They are, I claim them as ours. and therefore you are ours too. You know, you are a part of our legacy, you know, our heritage, our family. Um, and I think that is something that I learned from them, you know, along with others, you know, but they were for me the tops, you know, they were royalty, royalty. I'm glad you said that. So the last thing is that we need a drop from you. Hi, this is Guy Davis, and you're listening, or no, I keep saying listening like we're still on the podcast. Hi, this is Guy Davis, and you're in the basement with JaVonne and Terez.
Let's do that. You about ready for that thing?
Yes, we're
Yeah.
ready.
Hi, this is Guy Davis, and you are in the basement with JaVonne and Terez for your listening pleasure.
Awesome. That's
We
so
love you
awesome.
so much. Thank you so much. Can you tell everybody how they can follow you on social media, where they can pick up Kokomo Kid?
Oh, okay. My personal Facebook page is Kokomo Kid with two D's. My professional widespread page, which is really Facebook page, which is kind of run by my manager because it's a fan page, excuse me, is Guy Davis, American roots musician. My website is guydavis.com. Oh, and I forgot to say, we've got mugs, you'll see. We have coffee with Kokomo mugs. So if you get interested in mugging with me, you can talk to the folks at the website. So that's guydavis.com. Facebook in the mornings. Coffee with Kokomo is the name of the little 20-minute spot I do.
And what time? What time does it air? What time are you on
10
Facebook Live?
a.m. Eastern time.
10 a.m. Eastern
New York
Standard
time.
Time.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody, please watch, support, get your mug, and you know, God bless
Have a
you.
cup of
And
Joe with Kokomo Kid.
Cup
there
of
you
Joe
go.
with Kokomo. Yeah, I like cup of Joe
With
with
Joe
Kokomo.
with Kokomo. How about that? Look at that. See, you ain't even know. You ain't even know. GuyDavis.com. And we really appreciate you. And I will be in your inbox a little bit later.
Terez, JaVonne, thank you so much for including me in on your Saturday machination.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week and stay safe. Stay safe.